Namaskar. Good morning. Welcome to the webinar, Data Science Demystified. I am Dr. Vivek Menon, Associate Professor at Computer Science Department, Amrita School of Engineering, Amrita Vishwavidyapitham, Amritapuri campus. I shall be your host and the presenter for this session. So let's have a quick look at the agenda for the day. So initially, we'll just have a quick overview of the CS degree programs and research groups at Amritapuri campus. And then we will talk about the data revolution, which is happening all around us for the last few years. Then we'll have a quick look at some of the keywords or the buzzwords, as you call it, data science, data analytics, machine learning, AI. What are they exactly? And try to figure out some distinction, if any, between them. Given the focus of this webinar on data science, we'll be looking at how is this term data science different from the rest of some of these keywords. We'll also have a quick look at the data science job market and also the key skills that are in demand to crack the data science job market. And towards the fag end, we'll have a question and answer session depending on the availability of time. And while entering your questions, we would request you to also enter your name in the question answer box, which will kind of help us to kind of identify your questions and move on. So just to make sure like I'm audible, if there are any issues, like please let us know also through the question answer box if there are any issues, because that is the only way for us to kind of get your feedback. So we'll be keeping a close tab on some of the questions. So you can feel free to ask, post the questions, but we would be addressing them only towards the end of this webinar. Inspired by our Chancellor, Sri Mata Amritanandamayi Devi, who is also affectionately known as Amma, the vision and mission of our Amrita Vishwavidyapitham is education for life and living. Also, the focus is on compassion-driven research, which has societal impact, leading to an overall global impact world over. As you already know, Amrita University is currently ranked the best private university, the #1 private university in India. And if you have been watching the NIRF rankings, which was recently released for this year, we have been ranked the 4th best university in India. So as you can see from the graph here, our rankings have constantly improved over the years from 2016 over to 2020, where we are now currently ranked #4. This is as far as the Indian rankings are concerned. If you look at the worldwide university rankings, you can see there also we are actually figuring as one of the #1 private university in India, whether it is the Times Higher Education ranking or the QS rankings. So this is our Amritapuri campus from where I am hosting this webinar. The Department of Computer Science at Amritapuri is well known for offering some of the leading edge programs and the research opportunities and the internships that we offer. So we offer the wide spectrum, the full spectrum of programs from UG, PG and PhD. So at the PhD level, we have the PhD programs in computer science and also focusing on AI. At the master's level, we have the MTech computer science program. In addition to that, we also have the MTech in AI, which was launched last year, and also the MCA program. At the BTech level, we have at the bachelor's level, we have the BTech CSE and the BCA program. In addition to this, last year, we launched the BTech AI program. And this year, we are launching the BCA data science program. We have a lot of MOUs with international universities, tie-ups with them, where you have an option of doing a dual degree and also spending a semester or a year abroad. So effectively gaining 2 degrees in the same time span. As far as the PhD programs are concerned, we also have an offer of scholarships for the eligible PhD candidates, ranging around 20,000 per month. as far as the industry internship for the MTech programs are concerned, we also offer 1-year industry internships at premier companies like ABB, Dell, Intel, Nokia for the MTech students. So after the first year of MTech, they get to do an internship for almost 1 year at these companies. So as far as the research groups at Amrutapuri campus are concerned, these are some of the key areas of interest our faculty are into. So as you can see, visual computing, video analytics, image analysis, formal methods and program analytics, complex networks and web content management, Internet of Things, AI, intelligent devices, next generation networks, wireless sensor networks, high dimensional data analysis, machine learning. This is where the AI, NLP segments also feature. Now, before I dive deep into the technical aspects, I just wanted to make a quick disclaimer that some of the contents of this presentation were sourced and assembled from multiple sources on the web. The copyright of the images and some of the other content rests with the respective owners as such, and appropriate references have been provided wherever available. So let's move into the second aspect, or the second point in the agenda, which is about the data revolution. So this is a very interesting graphic which captures a lot of detail. As you can see, this is what happens on the internet. So take a moment to really fathom what is actually there on the image, and also some of the text that I have highlighted on the right-hand side. So you can see 188 million emails, 41.6 million WhatsApp plus Facebook Messenger messages, 18.1 million text messages, and so on. So the list you can see. If you take a guess, like this is actually what happens in an internet minute. So imagine 60 seconds, right? Within 60 seconds, this is the amount of data that is getting generated. So this is what happened in 2019. So if you actually look up the internet, you will find this internet minute over the last few years. And in every year, you can see there is a consistent increase. So in fact, as we speak, they also have the 2020 internet minute. Though 2020 is not yet over, these are the projections. So as you can see, the projections for 2020, at least when this was published, at least a few months ago, somewhere in Jan to Feb, was somewhere around, as you can see, the emails, the WhatsApp messages. So you can see whatever is there in bracket is what was from the previous year, and what is written otherwise is for this current year projection. But knowing very well like what has happened in the last 3 months, given that given the lockdown and the amount of time that most of us have spent indoors, for sure this is only going to go anywhere but north in terms of, so surely this is going to be increasing beyond whatever is listed here. So that was the internet minute. This is what is a day in data. So what you can see here is the kind of statistics. Right? For example, we saw in the previous slide, we saw, for example, the number of tweets, right? A number of Twitter logins, right? Number of people who are kind of on Twitter. So if you look at the number of tweets that are sent in a day, so as you can see that is listed on the top left, it's almost 500 million. Right? So you're talking about in a day, 500 million tweets are being generated. And if you look at some of the other data that is getting generated in terms of emails and other messages over social media, so you can see the scale of data that is getting generated. And it's mostly going to be in petabytes and exabytes, right? So you can see the over the years. So the interesting statistic that you can see here is the kind of the shift in scales. Right, from what we otherwise normally refer to as gigabytes and terabytes, now we are moving into petabytes and exabytes. So in this context, we talk of we characterize what is known as your 3 V's of the big data. So data has been there for so many years. So what is so special about these days? Right, we talk of the big data revolution. So what we saw in the previous few slides basically personifies what is big data. So you can see the volume at which, and what is otherwise usually referred to as the 3 V's of big data. Right? So the volume, variety, and velocity. So if you look at the volume, as I was mentioning earlier, we are seeing a shift in scales from gigabytes to zettabytes. So zettabytes is somewhere around 10 power 21, right? So it's actually like a trillion gigabytes, right? So these are the kind of scales that you're talking of. The variety, right? So earlier we were normally looking at tabular data and maybe numbers, but as you can see, the kind of data when you talk of tweets, Facebook messages, so you're talking of structured and unstructured data coming in a variety of formats. So you saw some of the platforms which are generating this volume of data. Not all data is always in numbers or text. It's going to be, and not all of them are going to be really structured. So you're going to be faced with an increasing deluge of data which are both structured and unstructured. The other important aspect of this is the velocity of this, right? So what you can see here is the velocity at which the data is being generated, right? It's almost at a frenetic pace, and year on year, as you can see, the speed at which this data is getting generated is only increasing, right? So streaming data. So while data has been there and we have been analyzing data, the last decade and a half has witnessed the sea change in terms of these 3 V's of data. So over the years now you can see actually there are many more V's. So if you look up the literature, you will find 4 V's, 5 V's, and in fact, I've come across an article which talks about almost 42 V's of data, right? So you talk of veracity, velocity, volatility, and so on. There are so many other V's also that you can think of, but primarily these 3 V's of big data capture what has changed in the last decade and a half. Right, to highlight this importance of data, in fact, The Economist magazine in 2017 came out with a very interesting cover, and it says, proclaims the world's most valuable resource, right, is no longer oil, but data. And they have a very revealing graphic for that. As you can see, like instead of something like an oil field, where you can see instead of the traditional oil companies, what is listed there are our tech companies, Google, Amazon, Microsoft, Uber, Facebook, Tesla, and so on. So if you look at the history of largest companies by market capitalization, and market capitalization is nothing the number of shares that are outstanding of a company times the market price, the price on that particular day. And that's how you, that's one way of valuing the overall worth of a company. So if you look at 2009, if you remember 2008, there was a financial crisis leading to a lot of meltdown in the markets. But even then, at that point in time, 2009, if you take a look at the top companies, 10 companies, if you have to kind of look at, primarily you will find oil companies, PetroChina, Exxon. You can see also there are a few, Petrobras. You can find also a couple of tech companies and retailing companies like Microsoft, Walmart. But in general, the oil was still the #1 kind of currency. But come to 2019, what is referred to as the big tech era. If you look at the market cap of the companies around, what you can see here is almost 7 of the top 10 companies, Microsoft, Amazon, Alphabet, which is owning Google, Facebook, Apple, right, Alibaba, and so on, right? So almost all of them are into, in some way or the other, into data, the big tech companies. And this is why we came out with this particular kind of interesting graphic. The Economist magazine mentioned that the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And who has control over data has literally greater control over the world. So now let's get into some more specifics. So I've set the tone. I've talked about the data revolution and given you an overview of what has really changed in the last few years, and based on which you can see these kind of different trends. So if you look at some of the keywords that we'll now try to uncover. So this is another interesting graphic which talks about the phases of AI. So it's also an interesting one-stop kind of graphic which covers almost all the key terms. So you can see there's a mention of AI, there's a mention of machine learning, There's a mention of deep learning. There is also on the side 2 boxes which talk about data science and data analytics. So if you can see, AI, as you all know, is nothing new actually. AI has been around since 1950s, right? And the basic definition of AI in one way is programs that can sense, reason, act, and adapt. Right? So the focus is on more on how to kind of create human-like systems or artificial intelligence, as you would call it, right? Because you're talking about humans are supposed to sense, reason, act, and adapt. So that is the primary premise on which the AI systems were built. But it held a lot of promise at some point, and then it fell off, and then again it picked up in somewhere in 80s when there was a lot of emphasis on machine learning. And machine learning, as you can see from this graphic, it says algorithms that learn patterns in data over time. Right? And then there was this huge surge in machine learning for some time. Somewhere in the 90s, again, there was a brief lull. And come 2010, we had the next wave of deep learning, where we talked of deep multi-layered neural networks that can learn from big data. So you can see there is it's all well timed. With the advent of big data has led to this huge requirement of analyzing this volumes of data which are being generated at a frenetic pace in terms of the velocity at which it is being generated, as well as a kind of variety. So you needed to have that kind of technology that would help us to kind of analyze this. And that is one of the reasons also that has led to the emergence of the deep learning era. So if you look at what is written about data science and data analytics here, so you often hear these terms used interchangeably. But if you look at the word data science is normally a term that is an umbrella term that is blends data analytics, computer science, and business domain expertise to solve various kinds of business problems. And data analytics, very similar. It's basically the practice of using machine learning algorithms and visualization to derive insights. So if you look at data science as such, that's normally the kind of term, an umbrella term that basically captures the essence of most of what is happening as far as analytics, data mining, all these terms can all be fitted under the one bracket of umbrella term data science. So here is, I just pulled out a tweet from this particular, from Twitter, which is about actually CTO of Boeing, sorry, CTO of Airbus. He had tweeted just a week ago. Her team is actually now talking of autonomous aviation. So we are not talking about drones here. We are talking about a full Airbus, right? So as you can see, what is being written at the bottom of the video, they have been testing this out for some time. So autonomous taxiing, takeoff and landing using onboard image recognition technology, demonstrating fully autonomous runway landings, right? Is a proof of autonomous flight software, way to go. So this is what she tweeted just a week ago. So as you can see, this is what is the onboard camera is kind of seeing. I'll just replay that video once again for your benefit so that you can just have a quick review of what you just saw. So what you're seeing here is basically the landing of an Airbus aircraft. Of course, this is actually the trial part. So this is actually, I thought this video actually puts in perspective what is the expectation of AI, right? So you're talking about a system that is able to sense, reason, adapt. So this is one excellent example to kind of see. We already know about autonomous cars from Tesla are all quite famous, but now we are talking about aircraft, an entirely different requirement, where the stakes are much higher. Right, so I think after this video, we can just move on to the next slide. So then comes the question, what is really machine learning? Right, so if you look at machine learning, let's put it in perspective. So if you look at your standard view of programming, right? We always used to say we have some data and we have some algorithms which basically work on that data and you get the output. In one way to kind of look at machine learning to kind of really understand what is really happening under the hood, Of course, this is not the exact definition, but this is something that will help us put things in perspective. As you can see, there is an emphasis on learning. So you want the machine or the computer to actually learn. And what does it learn from? It learns from data. But it needs to kind of make some kind of correlation between the data and the output. So what you do, what the computer is learning here is you provide data and also the corresponding output. And then it tries to make some sense of how there is a relationship between this input and the output. So the outcome of this is the model, and which is what we, and once we get this model, we talk of, okay, there is some learning here. So the emphasis of machine learning has been traditionally on algorithms. And so if I just back up a little bit, if you look at that slide here in green, you can see algorithms that learn patterns in data over time. So the key emphasis of this has been on algorithms, whereas artificial intelligence is at the much broader level. As you can see, it refers to programs that can sense, reason, act, and adapt, under which machine learning comes. AI is such a broad area. You have so many other topics also in AI, like computer vision, pattern recognition, robotics, just to name a few. So it's a broad area which integrates a lot of these underlying technologies, of which machine learning is actually a very essential and crucial part. But what is the focus of machine learning is more on the algorithms, right, that learn patterns in data over time. And where does data science come in then? Well, data science, the focus is slightly different. The focus is on drawing useful conclusion from data using computation. So you can see all these are close cousins, if I am to say so, right? So one feeding into the other, some way or the other. So what does data science involve? So here is one reasonably great explanation that I came across from the University of California, Berkeley. They have run a famous program, and from their textbook, which is quoted at the bottom, Computational Inferential Thinking, Foundations of Data Science. They talk exploration part, and then you have predictions where you are making informed guesses. And when you say informed guesses, actually it's not anything on gut feel based on the data. And for this purpose, what do you use? You use the machine learning. So whatever we talked about, the machine learning is what is actually kind of being used here. It doesn't stop here with the prediction. We also need to quantify our degree of certainty. So if you look at the degree of certainty, this is where the statistics comes in. Statistical decision theory to really help us come out with quantifying our degree of certainty. Moving on, the next question that comes to your mind is, okay, you have heard this term analytics. So what is analytics? Analytics is the use of data, information technology, statistical analysis, quantitative methods, and mathematical or computer-based models to help managers gain improved insight about their business operations and make better fact-based. So I highlighted a couple of terms here: gain improved insight, make better fact-based decisions. So the key aspect here is, as you can see, there is a significant degree of overlap, right, between the teams of data science and analytics. Right, so it's again, data is coming in, statistical analysis is coming in, quantitative methods, mathematical or computer-based models. And what is the premise here? To help managers gain. So analytics is normally kind of used more from the business context, where you talk of, I'm sure you heard of this term, business analytics, data analytics, right? So this is commonly used, but the larger kind of, as I was mentioning earlier, the umbrella term is data science. So moving on, let me just share a couple of examples which will kind of help you put things in perspective. So for example, what is shown here, so for a moment you can actually look at the right hand top corner. This is the FIFA World Cup 2014, right? And what you see here are the fixtures here, right? And if you remember, the FIFA 2014 was won by Germany, right? And what a group of researchers from Germany, the moment the fixtures were announced, well before the actual World Cup started, as soon as the fixtures were announced, they analyzed a lot of data. Once the teams and squads were announced, before the first match even took place, they came out with a model where they analyzed a lot of data, player data, team data, and various aspects, and made a very complex model and ran a lot of simulations and came out with what you see on the left. So what you see on the left is basically the list of probabilities, right, in terms of the odds of winning. So if you can see, as per their prediction, they had given the highest probability of winning the World Cup to Germany. And surprisingly, believe it or not, Germany won. Right, so you can see so this is not this model was not based on any gut feel, but it was actually, so the paper is also available, so you can look up. I provide the reference at the bottom. So what it was published as a research paper by this group of German researchers. So the only small change that actually happened was they had predicted a final. So you can see how they predicted from the round robin to the next league to quarterfinal to semi-final to final. The only mistake, if at all any, that was there in their model was they predicted a final between Germany and Spain, though actually the final was actually between Germany and Argentina. So you can see that winning goal being scored there. That is shown in the picture there. Other than that, in terms of who actually won, they were able to correctly predict. So the sequel to this is actually come 2018. For that World Cup, believe it or not, nobody got it right. Right? There were a lot of big names that actually ran very complex simulations. But despite their best efforts, they were nowhere close. And actually, they made a laughing stock of themselves. In fact, nobody predicted, actually, I think, if I remember right, I think France won the match against Croatia, right, in 2018. But nobody had predicted France to win. Another interesting application that came to my attention. So this is a very catchy heading. As you can see, Facebook likes mean a computer knows you better than your mother, believe it or not. Right? The Wall Street Journal, in fact, came up with this particular article. And the article goes on to say that actually with 10 Facebook likes, right, 10 data points, a computer can actually beat the accuracy of a person's coworker at judging his or her personality traits, such as extraversion, neuroticism, conscientiousness, and so on. Now you increase the number of data points. Suppose you have access to 70 Facebook likes. This model would be more accurate than your close friends. Now you further increase the number of data points. Suppose you have access to 250 Facebook likes. What it says or what it claims is that it can even beat someone's spouse to really know what is your true character. Right? So you can see some of these interesting applications based on data. So what I've listed here is basically a set of news articles that are actually appeared in the web. I've just taken a collage of some of the articles. So you can see a very recent article, how data science can help India's frontline workers in the fight against COVID, right? And big data analysis identifies new cancer genes. Again, another application of data science, Citibank, which combines investment banking units in data science. So all these are very recent articles. Again, another tool to predict real-time data and location for illegal activities. This is for crime monitoring, which as part of policing is using sports like anything. Also, data science give a new look to art of fashion. So if you see the collage here, you can see literally there is no domain where you cannot kind of think of a application. There is everywhere. Think of any domain produces data. Every other domain, whether it's financial services, manufacturing, transportation, healthcare, hospitality, energy, law enforcement, online, telecom, to retail, to name a few, every other vertical produces data. And where you have data, there is ample scope for analyzing the data and getting various kinds of insights. Right? So I just listed some of the areas where, and this is just only representative. You can even think of more. The reason being, data is generated literally everywhere. And wherever data is generated, there is always room for analyzing that data. So next, let's look at the aspect of how is really data science different. The traditional view of data science is before the advent of data science, right? It's not that we never analyze data. Data analysis has been there for quite some time, especially when you talk of the electronic data processing, EDP, from the early 50s, 60s, where we had these massive computers being used for various analysis, and then on to the mainframe era and the microcomputers and the PC revolution. We have been doing data analysis, but primarily on what happened. So if you look at this particular table that is listed there, is actually a few data points I just listed for, let's say, a stationery company. It talks about some names of distributors, what are the stationery item, what is the color, what are the number of units, what is the price, and what is the total price. So the typical questions that somebody who will be handling this kind of a portfolio would be, okay, what happened? In the sense, what was the revenue that was generated? Which quarter did each distributor sell the most? Or it could be something like how many red clipboard. These are the typical questions: what, when, how many, who, which, so on. So if you look at the general spectrum, the focus has been on mostly on past, what happened, why did it happen, up to present. And this, if you may note, is another keyword, business intelligence. I never introduced this term before, but this is a standard term that was in vogue up to around a decade ago. It's still in vogue today, but it has been focus on analytics. While business intelligence services are still in demand, but business analytics is much more considered to be much more important today. So if you look at past to present, that is how you would actually capture what is business intelligence, right? When you move into the future, what is likely to happen? What can happen given a community, behavior of a community, and so on? For those kinds of questions are what actually would be the concern of analytics. Why did it happen? Will it happen again? What will happen if we? What else does the data tell us that we never thought to ask? Right. So this, you can see there is a resonance with the data mining also. Right. So, but if you look at it, all these are relevant technologies that are kind of supporting kind of the overall data science umbrella, coming under the data science umbrella. So I was mentioning about business intelligence. One of the common themes in business intelligence is also the use of dashboards, right? So these are, I just pulled out from two Government of India dashboards. This interesting website, attendance.gov.in. Please feel free to kind of just peruse that website. You can see live data as we speak. So if you go to this website, actually you can see the current log of all the central government employees by organization, the average time that they kind of got in, and various other interesting statistics are available on a day-to-day basis. Of course, some data details are only available to authorized personnel, but basically the entire data of attendance has been provided to you in a very user-friendly format. So the term dashboard comes from your automobile, right? From your car. The purpose of a dashboard is basically to give you live information about the health of your vehicle, right? So you are able to see what is the speed at which you're going, what is the level of petrol or diesel, what is the level of temperature, right? So all these vital parameters so that you can take corrective action. So the moment the indicator comes up in terms of, let's say you're running low on fuel, you have to take corrective action. So similarly, for managers to get an insight about what is really happening within their organization, instead of going through reams of data or reports, these kind of dashboards are in visual format are able to summarize the overall health of or certain vital parameters or statistics of the organization. Right? So it varies from organization to organization. The other dashboard, as I have shown in the bottom right corner, is of electrification. So the famous Saubhagya scheme, where the government of India the last few years had this major push in terms of electrifying every other village. Right? So those details are also available on this particular website. So let's quickly look at the phases of data analytics. So as you can see, these are another few set of keywords that you often come across the literature: descriptive, predictive, prescriptive. Right. So as the name suggests, so you can see the timelines that I have marked on top. So descriptive, as the name suggests, is primarily dealing with past. So for example, it looks at historic data to answer what happened and why. And it can help uncover reasons for past successes and failures that can inform future decisions. So primarily, you're not doing anything, you're not tinkering with data. You're just looking at it and then trying to understand, summarize what has happened in the past. The moment you talk of predictive, as the name suggests, it's going into the future, from now to future. You're looking beyond. So this is where you use rules and algorithms. These are where the machine learning algorithms, which have learned on past data, which will help you to predict a given outcome from specific inputs. And of course, with some level of assurance, right? So you can determine the probability of future events. And that's where we talked about inferencing. Now, a different flavor of this is when you bring in optimization, you talk of prescriptive. So predictive and prescriptive is actually one level higher, where it analyzes the implication of each action and then tries to come out with the optimal course. So let's try to understand this with an example, and then hopefully this should be clear. So for example, you would have seen this almost regularly, right, in your nearby stores. Most of these department stores clear their seasonal inventory by reducing prices. And they'll say 50%, 20%, 30%, buy one, get one, buy one, buy two, get one, various kinds of offers, right? So the key question that some of these firms or stores face is when to reduce the price and by how much, right? So that is a question that requires some analysis, right? So if you are to follow the descriptive approach, which is what most of them have been doing for ages, is basically what do? They look at last year, okay, what did we do when we had a similar situation, when we wanted to empty our inventory, how much discount did we give? Okay, we gave 10% discount. Okay, chalo, let's give again another 10% or 15% this year. And of course, you would have known, like after having given the discount, how much was the kind of sales and how much you spent on advertising, all that you know, but you are just looking at past data and then you are arriving at some figures. Now, when you talk of predictive, what happens is you will do some kind of a what if analysis, something similar to that, but you use basically machine learning here in this context. It's not exactly the conventional decision support system what if analysis, but here you are bringing in some machine learning where you use past data from the previous years, right? What has happened, and then you are able to come out with some kind of interesting relationship, and then based on which you predict the sales based on the price, right? So there are so many factors, right? So your discount, how much you do advertising, and so on, and based on, so you can think of various factors that will influence your final sales. But again, here the difference between predictive and prescriptive will be explained with this particular example. The prescriptive, on the other hand, will find the best set of pricing and advertising to maximize sales. So whereas a predictive, you can play around and say, okay, what will be my sales if I give a 10% discount? What will be my sales if I give 11% discount? What will be my sales if I give a 20% discount? And how much of level of advertising budget should I have for each? And then if effectively, what will be my bottom line or profit? So you can, so it's up to you to kind of change and decide. Whereas in prescriptive, there is a level of optimization that is coming in where it will kind of come out and say, okay, for this kind of inventory that you have, based on past patterns, this is the ideal pricing, or this is the ideal discount that you should be giving. And also this is the level of advertising that you should do to maximize sales, right? So you can, I hope this puts the difference between predictive and prescriptive analytics. So a typical, now let's quickly look at the workflow as to what really happens in a typical machine learning workflow. Right? So you basically, you get data, you clean, prepare and manipulate the data, you train the model, and once you train the model, you again test it on data, and then you keep improving. So it's like a continuous kind of cycle. So you would have come across this famous adage that 80% of the time is actually spent in preparing the data, right? Because data is not never in the form that you would always want it to be. So a lot of time is actually spent in getting the data, cleaning and preparing and manipulating it. Once the data is in shape, is ready to be kind of fed to a model, then more or less it is pretty much smooth. But getting the data in the format that you require it is really a challenging task. So you can see there is not much of a big difference in terms of the workflow. So if you look at the data science workflow, the emphasis is more on the data here. So you can see you collect data from from left to right. You can see raw data is collected, the data is processed, and then you clean the data. After you clean the data, you do exploratory data analysis, or EDA, which is also a common term, where you try to understand kind of what are the interesting kind of patterns within the data before even you create a model. And then you apply, and so this is feeling. And so this is another important aspect, what is also known as storytelling, data-driven storytelling. So the reason is if you just present that insight as such is a sentence or something, it may not really resonate with the audience. We have powerful visuals which will leave a lasting impact. So that is another key skill that is also in demand, which we'll see in the next few slides. So the data science skills that you can see so many such graphics on the net. So, but this is relatively a reasonably good graphic, which basically captures some of the important aspects of what you need to imbibe or acquire as part of data science. So as you can see, there is the analysis part, there is a mechanics part, and there is the communication parts. So what you can see here in terms of, you should have a reasonably good background in math and stat, and also some good knowledge of machine learning algorithms. Now that's one aspect. The other aspect is, okay, how do you do it, right? So the theoretical knowledge apart, you should also be in a position to now apply it. Right? So knowledge of some of these languages like Python or programming, also knowledge of some query languages is also helpful, especially when you're analyzing the data. You often come across the term data wrangling also, right? In terms of cleaning the data, data munging, all these aspects, you will need to really have a knowledge of some of these key programming languages and some of these database related query languages. That aside, as I was mentioning earlier, once you generate the insight, how do you communicate it to the audience? So this is where the aspect of data visualization or data-driven storytelling. Right? So powerful visuals, which basically, as they say, a picture speaks multiple words, right? So similarly, a visual, how do you create engaging visuals, which in one shot captures what you really want to communicate? So another interesting quote that I came across is, so often people ask, like, isn't this all for completely statistics? Well, statistics is definitely needed, but statistics primarily deals with mostly up to descriptive level. The emphasis on predictive analytics is not that much in statistics, if you ask me. So, so this quote somehow resonated with me, and I just quoted this from this particular Twitter feed. A data scientist is someone who is better at statistics than any software engineer, and better at software engineering than any statistician. So take a moment to digest this. A data scientist is someone who is better at statistics than any software engineer. So you need to know programming, but that's not enough. You also need to have a sound background in statistics and of course machine learning. You don't need to kind of, it's already understood that you all anyway need to know about machine learning, but you also need to have a good base on statistics. And better at software engineering than any statistician. So those who are coming from the statistics background, they are reasonably sound in all the statistical theory and learning, and also the kind of various tests and other things that normally the other computer scientists might kind of struggle with. So they may not be very familiar with the programming aspects, and that's where they need to become, that's where they need to kind of put in their efforts. Now let's look at the key trends in the data science job market. So the data scientist, I'm sure you have heard this job role, right? It has been consistently ranked as the best job across every industry, according to Glassdoor, famous agency which looks into the various kinds of job profiles. Glassdoor's 50 best jobs in America report for 3 years in a row since 2016. And why? What are the reasons attributed to that? The high earning potential, the abundant career opportunities, and the good number of job openings. So if you look at the average annual base salary, which I just pulled out from these websites that are listed, like on Glassdoor and Indeed.com, these are some of the key websites which you can actually look up for the details of these kind of job roles. The most recent salary quoted, the annual average base salary. So there are some firms which may offer even much higher, maybe even double this. But this is the average annual base salary of a data scientist, which runs into $1,23,000, right? So if you, this is annual base salary. So if you are talking of India, you can multiply that by close to 70, right? So you can imagine the earnings potential for a data scientist. Now, if you're a senior data scientist with at least 5 to 6 years of experience, the average annual base salary even goes up further, right? So it runs into somewhere around $1,52,000. So remember, this is only the base and the average, right? There are also instances where it could be even much higher. So what are some of the key roles in data science? We already talked about data scientist, but there are also a few other roles: the data architect, data engineer, data analyst. So data analyst is the standard kind of role which has been there for ages, where they process and interpret data to get actionable insights from the company. The third one that is listed, the third box. Data scientist takes it to a new level because we are talking about, remember, we already talked about the big data revolution and the kind of sophisticated skills that you need, right? We saw the skill sets of a data scientist, right? So this is very different from what a typical data analyst does. Now, the other two important roles that are also in demand are data engineer and data architect. So when you have these kind of tech companies which are generating this level of data, remember, I was mentioning about streaming data coming in. We saw some of the examples, right? Petabytes of data over a day or few days, right? So how do you kind of engineer systems that are able to manage this confluence of data across multiple formats and then make it, put it in a pipeline that you can give it to a data scientist? So that is where the data architect comes in. So he develops the data architecture to effectively capture, integrate, organize, and centralize and maintain the data. So this is more like a tech role. It's not mostly programming, but it's more in terms of database, right? Administration, right? Or architecting, not even administration, architecting. The engineering would be more, the data engineer would be someone who actually manages this based on whatever the data architect has prescribed, develop, test, and maintain data architectures to keep data accessible so that the data scientist would be able to pull off the data. Of course, the data will not be necessarily in the format that they always wanted. The data scientist has to further take on and process it and put it in a format that is ready for analysis. So this is another graphic that I pulled out from Analytics with their popular portal. Recently, they had run an article which talks about career paths in data science and the analytics industry. So what you can see is initially it's not very easy to kind of always break into a data scientist role directly. It varies depending on your skill set. But most of them migrate into this from general reporting roles. Once you are familiar with the standard descriptive analytics that I was mentioning about, you have this intermediate analytics role: business intelligence, decision management, web analytics, fraud analytics. So that intermediate analytics role is like a key point, pivot point for you to move into diverse roles. It could be data scientist roles or tech project manager roles. So the data scientist role, you can see, as you can see, depending on the domain that you are into, it could be image processing, speech analytics, or text analytics. So you can see the continuum here. So it's like plotted as like a graph, interestingly. So on one side, on the y-axis, you have your the skill sets in terms of statistics and computing knowledge. So if you are talking of a role as a data scientist, you can see you need a lot more of statistics and computing background. Whereas if you are more into kind of the business understanding or the domain knowledge is also important, because what a data scientist in healthcare does may be slightly different from a data scientist in the sports or data scientist who is looking at retail industry, because the domain knowledge that is required is going to be slightly different. You may be using the same algorithms, but you also need to convert this data into insights. So for that, you need to have a thorough understanding of the underlying domain. And that is what is mentioned as the business understanding. So if you look at the Indian market, and this is again from the Analytics India magazine, the Indian market is actually really booming. Of course, the last few months is applicable to everyone, so we don't need to kind of really factor that now. But this was published a few months ago. The analytics industry expected to grow at a CAGR of a compounded annual growth rate of 16% till 2025. And you can see from the graphic on the side here, the analytics industry is going to, by 2025, in the next 5 years, going to touch close to $75 billion. The overall Indian market is almost going to grow to 255 billion by 2025. So analytics is from what is currently around only 19%, by 2025 it will account for 30%. So close to 1/3 of your market, as far as the IT industry is concerned, is going to be accounted by the analytics industry. So now let's look at the key skills to excel in data science. This is again some interesting articles from various magazines. So Analytics India magazine, a very popular magazine which is available online for free, happened to publish this data science skill study 2019. The top skills a data scientist must have to land in a good job, right? So what these are their findings, right? So they have basically interviewed a lot of people and organizations and hiring managers to find out what are exactly their requirements. So and what they published is basically listed here. Python continues to be libraries, knowledge of GPU hardware and CUDA, NVIDIA, right? So a lot of the traction is happening on that front also, in terms of how do you parallelize some of this code and then also run this on cloud, also using GPU hardware to really get a speed up of multiple times. And also deep understanding of algorithms, having great comfort with cloud service providers. So this is what I was mentioning. There is an increasing shift toward the cloud, where whatever was otherwise done locally on your machine, now you're able to migrate to the cloud. Strong command or visualization tools. I just named a couple of them: Tableau, ClickView, right? I was mentioning about data-driven storytelling, right? This is where the visualization tools come handy. Knowing your way around GitHub, Notebook as a choice, right? Your integrated development environment. Also expertise in Hadoop. This is not mandatory, but ideally, like if you know something about some of these Spark, Hadoop, all these things, the big data ecosystem, that also would be helpful. So if this was was published by another interesting study by a famous portal called as R Bloggers.
the top 10 most valuable data science skills in demand. So they have actually divided into two aspects. What are the core skills and what are the advanced skills? So if you look at the core skills, programming, Python, R. So diverse requirements. Some prefer Python because Python is like a standard general purpose language which can be used for not only data science, for all other aspects also, general programming also. Whereas R is more like a statistical computing language and primarily finds a lot more traction among statisticians. But there are equally in industry grade applications and companies which actually use R also for developing their products. But in general, you will find more uh, uh, people gravitating towards Python. Knowledge of SQL, as I already mentioned, because you're dealing with data and when you need to kind of pull out data, you need to have some knowledge of SQL, joins, right? Inner joins, outer joins, all these will come handy, right? Basic math and stats is always essential. The ML algorithms and also data visualize. So these are the core skills. What are the advanced skills which will really help you strengthen your CV? Communication skills, also knowledge of cloud services, right? Because also aspects of software engineering, automated ML. So this is another interesting development, right? There are some companies like H2O AI and few others who are in this market where you are actually looking at the entire pipeline of machine learning data science is getting automated. So you don't need to manually slog and do all this. In fact, there are click and drag, right? Options available which will automatically take care. Even that is available on cloud. So for example, cloud services like Azure from Microsoft, from the Amazon, the EC Cloud, EC2 Cloud, and the Google Cloud, right? All of them are offering various kinds of such services, especially Amazon and Microsoft, right? Are offering a lot of such machine learning based services. And also domain expertise. So these are the advanced skills that would really kind of help you. So another thing to look out for is the Gartner 2020 Magic Quadrant. So Gartner is a technology forecasting company which basically gives the forecast of where the technology market is heading. So this is one website you should keep track of. And they publish what is known as a Magic Quadrant. And also in addition to that, they also publish a lot of other literature also regarding the upcoming technologies. So what you can see here is the Magic Quadrant, where they have listed the challengers, the niche players, and the visionaries, right? So you can see some of the key names here and the leaders, the market leaders. So you can see some of the standard names here. For example, you can find Microsoft there, Google there, H2O AI, SAS, right? And there are also a few other specific players, niche players, and also like IBM also finds a mention here in the latest report. So in the last few months, if you remember, like in general, there has been a talk of, okay, because of various aspects, the data scientist job role is not as attractive these days. There are various kinds of reports, but the good news is, well, it's possibly changing. The last 3 months, of course, is, as I was mentioning, because of the COVID pandemic has affected literally everything, right? So notwithstanding, a week, 10 days ago, so this was posted on June 16th, I just found this interesting article which says LinkedIn data scientist job postings are stabilizing and is recovery around the corner. So there was a dip, but in fact, LinkedIn is a place to go to kind of really search for these job roles. So you can see what are the kinds. So a lot of these articles that I mentioned about, where I mentioned about these key skills, are actually based on the job roles that are actually described in LinkedIn. So moving on, some of the useful websites for you to bookmark to really get to speed with this topic. I just listed them down in the alphabetical order, but this is just a representative list, some of the things which I normally keep following, and I found it really useful to come to speed with whatever is the latest. Analytics India magazine, all these are online resources, by the way. Analytics Vidya, it's an excellent portal. Which has almost very regularly they come out with very interesting articles and career paths and tutorials, and they also run various kinds of hackathons, and that is another great way to kind of get started. Data Camp, they offer various kinds of online courses. Of course, Coursera is always there. I not listed Coursera as such because Coursera is devoted to much larger kind of audience also and courses. Data Camp is specific to more data science and machine learning. There is another interesting portal, what is known as Data Science Central. There also you will find a lot of interesting articles. Kaggle, of course, the number one place to be as far as data science and machine learning is concerned. Kaggle also provides you a lot of kernels, and so a good way to kind of get to test the water is to really start once you get these insights to get to start participating in some of these contests. Kaggle, Analytics Vidya. Analytics Vidya is more like India focused, but of course they also have a worldwide audience. But Kaggle is the ultimate kind of portal as far as worldwide reach is concerned. Another interesting website is KD Nuggets and also R Bloggers. And there are many more which I haven't listed, but as I said, but these are some good places for you to really get started with, to read more about it. So they have various kinds of articles which is for from starters to more intermediate to advanced. And I think it's 11 o'clock sharp. I think we are on schedule. So we'll now enter into the Q&A section. So please enter your name while submitting a question, and I have some of my colleagues here also who are joining me, and depending on the kind of nature of questions, anything related to analytics or anything related to our programs at Amrita, which I have anyway kind of highlighted once again. Please feel free to answer, please post your questions, and to our best we will try to answer them.
Okay, so I think we have a first question here from Muhammad Anis, who asked, what is the difference between
machine learning and deep learning? So if you remember the slide which I had kind of mentioned, machine learning is the overall kind of umbrella term as far as all these learning aspects are concerned. Deep learning is the more recent phenomenon. In a way, it's actually, as you can put it, neural networks has been there since the 90s, but it couldn't find much traction because of lack of computing power. But around the time to 2010 or a little around that time, a lot of new algorithms came up, starting from famous researchers like Hinton and Bengio and LeCun. So what has happened is, like, they came out with some interesting neural networks which are much more complex than the standard deeper. When you say neural networks, as you know, have layers. So unlike the standard traditional architecture which had only few layers, they talked of neural network where you have 30, 40, 50 or even 100 layers, and which are able to handle much more complex phenomenon into imaging, voice, speech, all kinds of aspects. They are kind of data they are able to handle. So basically, the deep learning is actually a subset of machine learning, to put things in perspective, and it is an advancement of the standard neural networks. The only difference being you have much more deeper layers, right? I think that should kind of put things in perspective. So basically, also to kind of add to the story, around the time, like the reason why you have a surge in interest in deep learning is also because to realize this architecture, complex networks, you also need to really have computing power. So with the advent of, with the availability, not the advent, rather the availability of cheap computing power, also especially on the cloud as well as GPU computing. So NVIDIA has played a big role in pushing this GPU computing, and this has also kind of led to a real fillip in the deep learning industry. So this is what has actually led to, and the availability of big data. So I think there is a famous analogy from Andrew Ng. He compares this deep learning architectures to a rocket fuel. So if you need to kind of really get that, unlike a normal aeroplane or a rocket which goes to outer space, requires tons and tons of fuel, right? And of course, it has advanced technologies also. So to run these deep learning architectures, you also, with the availability of data, availability of computing power, and the advancements in algorithms is what has actually led to this deep learning era. So let me look at the next question. So there is another question. The MTech AI and data science is a new course in Amrita. How can you guarantee about placement, and after the COVID situation, how job opportunities would be? So specifically, please note, like the offering at Amritapuri campus is specifically the standard MTech program, also the AI program, but our focus has been primarily on machine learning. The data science program that is mentioned is for BCA, right, which we are going to offer from this year. In terms of placement, we have very good placement that has been happening. Almost all the students are placed. Almost we have 2019, 2020 batches. If you look at the MTech, almost 95% of the students either have their internships or their placements done, especially as far as the 2019 batch is concerned. So as far as placements are concerned, it has never been a problem, at least at Amrita. The COVID situation, of course, as you all know, the job opportunities are left to the companies to decide, right? And so this is actually, if you look at the standard approach, this is when most of the people try to defer their joining by either pursuing higher education or trying to invest in upskilling. So there will be definitely demand because in terms of data and other services, these kind of roles are definitely going to be valued by the industry. But as I said, it will require a lot of upskilling. So there is it will take some time for naturally for the economy to bounce back. And so in terms of job opportunities, it is something that we can only talk of, means in terms of demand actually. But as far as data science is concerned, this is, as we have already seen, we saw during the talk also, the requirements are still available. But as I said, because of the competition, it will require a lot of upskilling from the side of the candidate. So, of course, when you invest in such programs, which runs into almost 2 years, naturally, by the time, definitely the economy would have picked up by all means, and it's going to remain. AI is here to remain at least for next few years, right, until otherwise, right? But for next few years, you can definitely expect this trend only to increase. So there are another question here which says, this is the first batch for MTech in data science. If not, how many batches have graduated? So basically, as I mentioned earlier, our focus is on MTech AI and machine learning. The MTech data science batch is primarily, I think, in the Coimbatore campus. Our focus has been primarily on machine learning and AI. Though we don't have a specific program in MTech in data science, but data science is a course that is also taught as part of the MTech AI machine learning program. We have electives on data science core papers as well as electives. So we have another question, how Amrita focus on entrepreneurship skills for students who are doing their coursework as BCA students, how Amrita supports budding entrepreneurs who are ambitious for starting a new company. Very good question. We have, interestingly, the #1 TBI, the Technology Business Incubator in the country, located here at Amrutapuri campus. So that is available for all the students here to kind of hone their entrepreneurship skills. In addition to that, the CIR also provides various services in terms of soft skills and other training. But the TBI is the specific agency that we have here, which is run by Amrita within, it's called the Amrita TBI, the #1 TBI in the country. You can look up more details about this web also. So entrepreneurship options are definitely available, one among the best in the country. So here is the next question. I am a mechanical graduate and currently pursuing PG data science engineering in Great Lakes. Can I join MTech AI and DS program for more learning? So our programs are currently part-time. It's all these programs are full-time programs. So if you're already enrolled, unless otherwise, if you are able to make it on a full-time basis only, you will be able to kind of continue in any MTech program. The other option is always the PhD option. So once you're done with your PG, if it is a full-time, I'm not exactly sure about whether your program is full-time or part-time or what is the nature of the program, because I know they offer a lot of programs. So this is the only kind of distinction I can mention. All our programs are currently full-time programs. So the next question is, good morning, sir. I am a student at ASC Coimbatore doing my 3rd year in integrated MSc mathematics. Would you suggest that data analytics is a good course option for someone who wants to pursue mathematics with computer science and programming? Great question. I think this is the kind of skill set that would be really required in terms of a strong base in mathematics. And then once you make a foray into data science, you will be really able to excel. So I would definitely recommend that you should, especially considering the job market, this is the way to go. Right? You should definitely invest in data analytics. So those who are already, and as I was mentioning earlier, those who are strong in mathematics, it comes quite naturally. The only thing that you need to supplement is some of the programming skills, and that can happen quite easily. It should not be a problem. So I would definitely recommend for that you focus on data analytics also. You will be able to really excel. So the next question is from Gayatri, which says, can I study data science in or along with MCA? So within here, if you ask about Amrita program, especially at Amritapuri campus, as part of the MCA program, we do offer a stream within the MCA program for which is on like a track, which where you can choose more data science courses as part of electives. So it's not like a specific MCA in data science, but under the MCA program, there are electives from the data science stream where you can get to know more about data science and also learn more. Right? So it's more like a stream within the MCA program, not a specific branch as such. But you can definitely study that. It's available. Electives are available. So the next question is by Sabita Sahu. During internships, do students get stipend? So the internships are primarily for the MTech students, as I was mentioning. All our students currently who have gone for this internship in some of these Ivy League companies, whether it is ABB, Nokia, Dell, Reliance, all of them are with internships. Specifically, most of them are doing with the focus on AI machine learning. And most of the stipends range from anywhere between 25,000 to 40,000. Right? So it varies from company to company, but yes, stipends, all these are internship with stipend, because what the industry really expects is they want to reduce the time, the acclimatization time for a student to onboard them. Right? So when they join as an employee, ideally it takes at least 6 months to a year before they can really get the benefit out of the employee. So by doing an internship during their second year of MTech program, there are cases where the internship then gets converted to a final placement offer. We have had such instances. So again, that is purely driven by your performance in the industry. But the companies really look forward while hiring an intern. Their expectation is the intern already has, during the internship period, before becoming a full-time employee, has already acclimatized himself or herself with the company. And by the time you finish like 6 months to a year in the company, you're really kind of internalize what really is their requirements. So if you're really a good performer, most of these companies go on and actually extend you a full offer. And you are able to kind of convert that internship into a final placement. So I would also like to mention at this point, like our MTech program, which we have been offering for so many years, since inception has been having intense machine learning focus, though it was not under the name MTech Computer Science Machine Learning. The primary focus of our MTech program at Amritapuri campus especially has been on machine learning for quite so many years. And that is one of the reasons that we have this kind of placement as far as internship and as well as placement is concerned. So as far as the placement statistics are concerned, as I said, we publish both the internship and the kind of placement statistic. So if you look at it in general, our average kind of placement statistic mostly around, as far as the MTech program is concerned, is somewhere in that same range as you mentioned, 95%. So the next question from Aditya is BCA program industry based or class work based or more practical based? So yes, as far as specifically the BCA program and what we are now going to offer, the data science specialization, is the curriculum is actually benchmarked with the industry requirements. And there are a lot of programming related clubs like the FOSS club, the BIOS club, into which many of these students participate and then go on to either get placed or go on for higher studies, especially abroad, or even do their MCA program. So as you all know, like when you have a bachelor's degree, that gives you an entry level position into the industry. But as is the case, you need definitely upskilling, and it's only a matter of time before many of them return to do their master's program, because the industry always expect you to upskill. If and also as a employee, if you need to really go up the corporate ladder, as they call it, you also need to have the relevant skill sets. So that is when like we have students who have joined the industry using our placement services, and then they come back after a couple of years sometimes to do their master's program and then participate in the dual degree program. Also, we have a lot of tie-ups with some of the foreign universities, and they spend a semester or a year abroad, and then thereby ending up with dual degrees, right, in the same time frame. So I think at this point in time, I think we can, since there are no more questions, this would be a good time for us to wrap up our session. So I hope you will proceed to our website and search for more information regarding our programs. And you're all welcome to apply for any of our programs, the master's program or the PhD program or even the bachelor's program, depending on your level. And we would really look forward to kind of seeing many of you in our campus, on our campus. Thank you for patiently listening to us, and I hope been informative. As I said, this is such a vast field, and it's next to impossible to really make sense in such a short span of time. But what I have done or attempted in this presentation is basically giving you a bird's eye overview. So just like a data scientist gives you insight, so what I've done is I have basically distilled information from the web across diverse sources and provided to you in a manner that makes it easy for you to kind of really relate to. So this is just a starting point. Now, if you need to kind of go further, you should now look up some of these resources and with this broad understanding and read more, and that is the only way, and also participate in such hackathons, and then also post some of your solutions on GitHub. And that actually becomes something like your calling card, right? Like your visiting card. So it's only a matter of time before once you start participating in this contest and really improve your coding skills and post your solutions or write blogs about your approaches, it's only a matter of time. The people in the industry who are in charge of hiring at respective companies, they will take notice in no time, and they will actually reach out to you. You don't need to really send out your CVs. Actually, if you have really good, it's only a matter of time that you would be discovered. So wish you all the very best and good luck. Thank you so much for listening. Namaskar.